Good evening. This is Julie Levy, who co-founded the Million Cat Challenge with Dr. Kate Hurley. Thank you all for joining us tonight to learn about an innovative way to help people keep their pets instead of bringing them into your shelter. Our presenters have been helping Los Angeles Animal Services do just that, helping keep over 2,000 cats and dogs a year out of the South LA shelter. Their organization is Downtown Dog Rescue, which provides a safety net of support covering veterinary care, help with rental deposits, spay-neuter, payment of redemption fees, and other practical assistance to allow pets to stay with the families that love them. Our first presenter, Lori Weise, founded Downtown Dog Rescue in 1996 and brings 19 years of experience managing the Downtown Dog Rescue Kennel, delivering community spay-neuter programs. She's also the founder of South LA Shelter Intervention Program. Lori's been honored by many for her service, including the City of Los Angeles and Found Animals Foundation. She's also the 2014 recipient of the ASPCA Henry Berg Award and the 2013 recipient of the Wallace Award. She was one of the founding members of the Best Friends Animal Society's initiative, NoCal LA, and advised the ASPCA on their safety net program in LA County shelters. In addition to overseeing Downtown Dog Rescue operations, she is a national speaker on community programs and the shelter intervention model of keeping pets in homes. With her tonight is Amanda Casarez, who became the Senior Shelter Intervention Prevention Counselor for Downtown Dog Rescue in 2013. Amanda has counseled more than 5,000 families with pets who needed resources to keep their pets in their first home, forever home. She's the founder and president of the nonprofit Watts Project, which works in the community of Watts, educating and providing resources to some of the most underserved pet owners, including the homeless and street outreach. Before we begin, we'd like to let you know that Lori and Amanda will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, but please ask them early on in the QA box, as questions asked at the last minute may not get answered. So as you're listening and something comes up that you'd like to ask about, go ahead and type it in right away for us so we can help get that to the speaker. Of course, we want to give a big shout out to Maddie's Fund for funding the Million Cat Challenge and making this all possible, and to all of our participating shelters for saving cats. Lori and Amanda, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. I want to start just by giving a little background of how I got started, because this program, I'm running it as a volunteer. I'm still a volunteer. I still have a full-time job. I run a furniture factory called Modernica. And about 20 years ago in 1996, that factory was located very close to Skid Row in Los Angeles. And as somebody that had never seen that degree of homelessness, I was just very appalled by how not only people were living, but very quickly I saw how cats and dogs were living. And I met this one gentleman here in the slide, Benny Joseph, and he had a dog, and I looked around for somebody, you know, obviously there's got to be some group or some organization, somebody that's helping everybody. And I quickly found out there wasn't. So that somebody was me. And starting off just very simple with, zero budget. It was, money out of my pocket, and just offering food and whatever I could offer. And we were very fortunate, and we still are in the City of Los Angeles, LA Animal Services. We have a lot of free spay and neuter, and at that time it existed on a smaller extent, but it was there, and that's how I got my start. So for several years, up until 2008, I was basically just kind of a connector of sorts, helping homeless and very, very low-income pet owners, cats, dogs, attain these vouchers. They didn't know where to go. They a lot of times couldn't fill out the paperwork. So I and a couple volunteers, we were very small, started getting really good at this, and we were a benefit to the department, and we developed good relationships with the animal control officers. Sometimes we'd help our people when their pets would end up in the shelter. We'd pay the fees to help them get out. And this, at the time, we're going back, some years, almost 20 years, there was really nobody doing this. And I didn't know really anything about animal welfare, and the shelter again was just very appreciative. So at the time, the general manager came to our group and said, would you like to start some kind of just a small program with a hotline that we already had, and we had these little cards, what would it take to keep at the time we just did dogs, and then we quickly saw, well, the cats, the more time I spent in the shelter and off the street, I saw what we're still encountering today. Our really big challenge is how do we keep cats from entering the shelter, because we just are not seeing the adoption rates, and we're still struggling with that today as I speak. So just real briefly, we didn't really have any goals. Again, we didn't have any big budget. We were spending about $50 per pet, and there was just no cost to the city, which again was a big benefit. And developing those relationships with the ACTs and just everybody, the staff, the clerical, and we didn't have Amanda there at the time. We just had a hotline and some cards, and those calls just kept flooding in, as they still do, into Amanda's office. So what we learned is so often, you hear of this, cold-hearted person. They come in and they have to, dump their dog or cat at the shelter. But what we learned is it's not always so cut and dry. It's not just that they don't care about that pet. When we really start asking questions and actually going to the shelter and meeting with people, we found poverty was really the main reason. And I'd like to know in the survey here, how many of you listening would agree that that's what you're seeing at your shelter, that poverty is a big factor? How many would say yes? How many would say no? So so far we've got 2 people who are saying yes and nobody's saying no. So I'm going to take that as a yes, that poverty is a problem that we're seeing in shelters. So many pet owners who come to the shelter believe that there's no other option but to surrender their pet, despite the resources that we all know exist. So why is that? Who are we trying to address? A lot of times we're speaking to that person that is coming on the very last day. They have to move. What if we could have spoken to that person a couple weeks before they came to the shelter? Or what if they knew that they didn't necessarily have to have this litter of kittens, that we could talk to them more about spay and neuter? And that's really how Amanda and I have worked together to prevent more pets from entering the shelter by offering options that empower and uplift families with pets. So this is not a program that is a handout. We're not just handing people flyers and saying, here, go figure it out. This is a lot of hand-holding. This is what I like to define as, we'll literally say to a family, we're standing in the office here, and we're at point A, and this is what it looks like. We're going to go to point B together, and we really break it down for them. What are the steps to get to that point? What are we trying to achieve here? Obviously, they want to keep their kitty or their dog, but they don't know how to do it. So we're going to walk them through those steps. And those steps, what we found, are some of the same steps that people have to take in order to get out of poverty, to save money, to ask questions, to be a little more mindful of what's going on. Let's see here. In the survey, I'm going to ask another survey. So you're going to click on how to use the thumbs up or thumbs down. You're going to click on the green thumb up if you're going to agree with the question I'm asking, and you're going to click on the red thumbs down if this does not apply to you. And I'm going to ask another survey later on in the slides. So this is where we kind of celebrate, and I think and it's hard. I mean, I'm speaking to all of you. You're in the shelters. You are the shelters. You have to go there every day and have great customer service, and you love animals. But sometimes we have to remember and celebrate the victories. So there's not a day that doesn't go by that when Amanda's having a bad day or I'm feeling sad. We have kept more than 5,000 animals out of one shelter. This is an open admission municipal shelter in one of the poorest areas in Los Angeles, including one of the poorest areas in Los Angeles County. And we're such a dense population to say that we have kept 5,000 cats and dogs out of a shelter. We all want to clap, so we're having, and that's just since our shelter. We opened a beautiful new shelter as of April 6, 2013. That's the South LA shelter. Here we go. So, you might want to know, what does this cost? Okay, so we take an average. We collect a lot of data, and we are averaging about $65 a case. So, and that even surprised me because, you're thinking, wow, every person that comes in, if their dog's hit by a car or their cat has been attacked by a dog, aren't these surgeries that cost thousands? And what we're finding a lot of the time is the person may just need vaccinations, or they may just need a bag of pet food to carry them through. All kinds of things that already exist that actually don't cost our program really anything to offer. And again, this is important for our city, the city of Los Angeles, for the shelter. This is not costing them anything. And I want to say, too, we're very, very fortunate that we have two things going on. We have a guaranteed grant of $100,000, which sounds like a lot of money, and that's coming from Found Animals Foundation, who is our major funder for this program. That pays for Amanda's salary. She is a paid employee. She works there full-time to support her family. I'm a volunteer, and most of the people in the program are volunteers. That pays for about 50% of our cases. So it's our job, primarily my job, to rally our volunteers and do grassroots fundraising to pay for the rest of the program. So we get this question a lot is, who are we serving? Who is the person that comes to the shelter? And this is what we're finding. This person is overwhelmingly, it's women who are coming to the shelter. And in our case, because this is Los Angeles, we have a lot of Latinas coming to the shelter with their children, with their pets, their extended family, and the primary language is Spanish. It's very important. If this is something that you identify with and you're saying, yes, that's my shelter, if you're thinking about starting one of these programs, I highly encourage you to find somebody like Amanda who can speak fluent conversational Spanish and be able to read in Spanish, because a lot of our people can't read the forms. Check out these stats on income. So 80% earn less than $25,000 a year. Okay, so $25,000 a year in the city of Los Angeles, where your rent on an apartment might be $1,400, a one-bedroom apartment, that does not leave a lot of money. And these are family incomes of $25,000. Of the 80%, 29% of those 80 made less than $10,000. So we are seeing a lot of homeless people. We're seeing people that may not identify as homeless. They're living in their cars. They're couch surfing. They're living with grandma. They're, whatever, just to get by. So they really are not living in a home. They don't have secure housing. Only 2% make more than $45,000, which is the median income. But again, $45,000 in the city of Los Angeles is not a lot. 50% receive some type of public assistance with our program. We will ask if you're on public assistance. We want to know, but it's not a requirement. We get a fair amount of people that are undocumented. They do not have an ID. They may not want to explain their whole background, and that's okay. So our program's unique. We have a great general manager, Brenda Barnett, who understands that and who supports us. Because so many programs, you have to show an ID, you have to prove that you live in a certain zip code or whatever. We have that criteria, but just even today, I'm thinking about it. We had a big dog that came in and didn't live in one of our target zip codes, but, you know, of course we helped anyways because the person was in need. So 38% did not graduate from high school, and only 30% had finished high school, but that's their only form of education. So we have a lot of people, and we have a real opportunity here to teach. And we're teaching more than just, you know, how to keep your pet out of the shelter. I mean, we're really teaching skills that hopefully we're helping a family get in a better spot, you know, get to a better place in life, whether it's housing or making sure they have a place to live and asking questions at their child's school. So many families come into Amanda's office. So the average family earning minimum wage will spend 141% of their income struggling just to meet the most basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing. So what we try to remember, and we have to remind each other, Amanda and I, is that we have somebody that we would say is extremely nasty. They might be cussing at us. They might be the most difficult person. That person might not know where their next meal to feed their child that day is coming from. That person might just have gotten kicked out of the last house that they're allowed to live in, and their home is a sidewalk tonight, and they have a cat that they love, and nobody in their family understands how much they love this cat. In fact, they mock them, and they tell them, get rid of the cat, get rid of the dog, you could get an apartment then, and they just don't want to. They don't want to because they're like all of us. They love animals, and they want to be successful. They know that if they just hold out a little bit longer and they get some resources, they can move with their pet. The next slide here is the number one question that I get asked, and I know Amanda gets asked as well, is, so Lori, why do the people that you're helping, I think it's great, I think it's wonderful in some cases, you know, people know me as helping a lot of homeless people, but is it really fair to the pets? I mean, these guys don't have enough money. You're saying here on one hand, they don't have enough money to feed their child. They're on government assistance. Why is it fair that they have this dog or cat? Couldn't that dog or cat do better? Couldn't they have a better home, one that they have a way to pay for vaccinations? They can afford to feed the cat or dog. We have people that come to our office that will tell us, we are out of cat food, we're out of dog food, we don't know how we're going to feed our pets. Okay, but the thing that I'm always optimistic, and I am a very positive person, and I think in this line of work you really have to be a positive person, and remember one thing, nothing lasts forever, including poverty. In most cases, we're assuming that this person that we're looking at today who's hit rock bottom, who is on the verge of being homeless, we're assuming that they never will advance, that they're never going to find the job that's going to take them to the next job, that's going to take them to the job of their dreams like I have, and make a even six-figure income. I could never believe where I am today if you could have met me when I was in my 20s. I was this person, okay, that had a cat, that cat got sick, and I had an $1,800 vet bill. And thank God I had a mom who also is not wealthy who helped me and supported me. In many cases, Amanda is that person that supports our pet owners that come in our office. We assume the person that they're never going to advance has always been poor. And that's another one. So many of the people we met, they just lost their job or they've not been able to find work. We just went through a major recession, and our area still is in recovery. For our area, the numbers, you can take the unemployment rate and times it by 10. And it gets even worse for different groups of people. The older the person is, the harder it is for them to find a job. So they're irresponsible. Can't we say these people are irresponsible? You're saying that they can't feed their children. Why do they have 2 dogs? Why did they go get a cat? They're not, though. They have not selfishly acquired a pet despite not being able to afford the care. In many of the cases, that cat was left by somebody in the apartment, and they were the kind person who started feeding the cat. And then guess what? The kids fell in love with the cat, and mom is saying all along, we can't keep this cat. And guess what? A year later, that is their cat. They've given that kitty a name, and that kitty lives inside their apartment. And until that cat gets sick, they've never really thought about the day when they're going to have to spend money on the cat. And that's when we find them at Amanda's office. So here, I'm going to have Amanda tell a story, because I think she's going to be able to tell the story the best, because she's the counselor actually working with the pets. So Amanda, do you want to tell the story about Chase?
10% need assistance getting their pet out of the shelter. Our average monthly cost for redemptions totals to be about $850. The cat in the picture is a 2-year-old male cat named Chase. Chase's family had recently lost their home to foreclosure. They had been living in their car for the last 2 weeks. Like most families we deal with, they had no friends or family to turn to and could not find a pet-friendly hotel. At this point, the family made the hard decision to surrender their cat to the shelter. One of the hardest decisions they had to make, crying and feeling guilty, I told them that if their living situation changed in the next few weeks and the cat was still at the shelter, I gave my word that I would pay the redemption fees. Well, a few weeks had passed, and guess what? The owners came in, happy as can be. They had found a pet-friendly rental. Kept our word. We paid the redemption. Chase is now back at home with his family. Too expensive, 50%. Average monthly cost, $3,500 to treat ear infections, skin infections, life-saving surgeries, parvo, tumors, broken bones. One of our most common cat cases is medical. Over the holidays, we had a 15-year-old cat come in. Family had Jinx all 15 years. She was spayed, vaccinated, well taken care of. They had visitors over for the holidays, and someone accidentally left the door open. Jinx got out, was missing for about 2 days. Jinx came back home, had got attacked by a dog. The family had did everything they could to treat him at home, but he was not getting better. He had now had an abscess on his neck and a bad infection. The owner had recently lost her job and could not afford medical treatment, so she did what any pet owner would do and bring him to the shelter to try to get help, not knowing that more than likely Jinx would probably get put to sleep. She was devastated to find this news out. We were fortunate enough to assist with medical and send her to our vet, where Jinx had the abscess taken care of, and Jinx is now at home with his family.
Wonderful. That's so many of our cases revolve around medical. Like Amanda was, telling this story that really, when we walk through a shelter, we're seeing. Literally, our shelter's really big. There's about 300 dogs, and there's a whole cat room, and it can be overwhelming. But since we've started this program, we will look at it differently. We wonder how many pets in those cages, in those dog runs, how many did we not get to help? How many did we not get to speak to? How many weren't ready to talk to us because they felt too ashamed? We still have a lot of really good work to do. One place that we really have done, I think, a particularly good job, and the staff, this is something that I think we all cry. I know every time I'm in Amanda's office, we'll start to well up and probably get tears right now as we're presenting this slide. But we have a community that up until our office opened would bring their pet, their senior, terminally ill, we're talking animals that cannot hold their heads up. They've had this pet all its life. 17, when I look at the paperwork at the end of the month, We've got kitties that are 20 years old. They've been well loved. It's their time to go. Dogs, big dogs that are 17, 18 years old. Obviously, they've done something right. They've had this pet all these years, or they acquired the pet later in the pet's life, but somehow we've gotten to this point. So 5% of our cases, we pay for humane euthanasia. It's not a service that the shelter that we're working out of is set up to offer the public at this point. We all agree it should be something that we're going to do. But for right now, we have a wonderful veterinarian. He's a partner that we work with. He gives us a flat fee of $92, no matter what, no matter the animal, how big, whatever. And he does it so compassionately and treats every single person, despite the fact that a lot of the people that are going in his office don't even know what humane euthanasia is. This may be a series of pets that they brought to the shelter. And how does the staff feel? They're with that poor, disoriented animal that sees their family walking away, and that's the last thing the pet remembers, or the family remembers, is hearing the wailing and the crying and the meowing and the barking. And it's just, they don't know what's going on. And they really, when we talk to them, they've never heard of this, a lot of the cases. So I like to say, not only are we providing a service, we're really changing the family tree and offering a really humane and compassionate way for into life. Behavioral issues, which are 5%. Now, these are mostly dogs, and I have to say they're mostly big dogs. We have a wonderful trainer who lives in the community, who is now retired. He worked for the Department of Animal Services, and he's a great ally to us. He's in the picture there on the right. That's Mr. Hill with one of the students. We sponsor free dog training as well in the park, but his cost is about $100 a week, about $100, give or take. Our average cost is $500 a month, and that's for unlimited. I mean, we're talking, this man will come and work on the spot and do everything. We always say his bag of tricks, whatever it takes to connect, and usually it's a disconnect. We don't understand how young the dog is, or that it's hyper, or what does hyper mean, and all those things. So it's a great service. And I know there's a lot of trainers, if you ask them, and you're willing to work within their set of parameters, and there usually is, they're a business, we have to pay them something. So Amanda and I always kind of laugh because we're both in rescue, and I think we both, we love animals, and we personally foster a lot of animals, cats and dogs, even though we're a dog rescue. And so, when we started, we were very concerned that, are we going to be taking all these pets home? Because it is really hard. You hear the stories, and you're brokenhearted, and you do want to help. But if you notice, it's only 5% of the animals that come through our office need to be rehomed or rescued. And we have our trusted partners that come through for us. Downtown Dog Rescue, we do own a kennel, so we're able to take some of the large breed dogs to the kennel. But we have wonderful groups who will take our bottle babies. Amanda is a bottle baby person. We have a wonderful program through Best Friends that takes a lot of the bottle babies, because during kitten season that is a huge challenge, to keep those little guys out and the little kittens. And spay and neuter. We are a mandatory spay and neuter, and that, depending on how you feel, for us, for in Los Angeles, I really feel it works only because there is so much free spay and neuter. We have multiple mobile clinics that are out there in the community, not just in nice areas, but in areas where, quote, the bad areas, the areas that our kennel's located in, the areas of our shelters. So to us, there are no bad areas. There's just areas for opportunity. So we'll call it the big opportunity areas. So, but there's always a percentage of people who don't qualify. They don't qualify because the dog or cat is too old. Most mobile clinics and our great partners next door to us is the ASPCA. Free, completely free. If you live in South LA, we're extremely fortunate that they opened up next door to us. They do the spay-neuter service. They do the vaccinations for cats and dogs that belong to the public, and they do all the adopted shelter animals as well. But even they can't do some of the animals. Animals that require blood work, animals that have heart murmurs, animals that have other things going on, like a tumor or hernia or things like that. So those are the surgeries when we say 25% of the cases come through, the person's kind of in a very bad spot. Now they've decided they are going to spay and neuter, and Amanda will speak to them. And that's what we're saying. So our average added cost is about $100 per surgery. So we always say you can help prevent more cats like this one from entering your local shelter, and you can be a part of it, and you don't need to be a rescue group, and you don't need to spend a lot of money. This is what, people want to volunteer. They're very excited by this program. They want to be on the front lines. They want to be helping Amanda in the office. And yet there's things that everybody can do, and they don't need to call our hotline. They don't even need to sign up as a volunteer. So in our next slide here, Amanda's going to talk about some of the ways that when people come to the shelter, how can they help? I mean, I'm sure a lot of these everybody listening has already thought about, but I think it's a good idea to remind everybody that everybody can play a part, no matter how small or big. So Amanda, do you want to go over some of the things?
Sure. How can you help? Identify and investigate existing programs that can help low-income pet owners. A small gesture like buying someone a bag of pet food or paying for a minor medical charge for a pet belonging to a low-income owner. Volunteer to help with outreach with a group already working in the community. It's as easy as joining a TNR group. Help spay and neuter your neighbor's pets. Provide transportation to a spay and neuter appointment. Not everybody has transportation. Refer them to their local shelter. Most shelters give free spay and neuter vouchers.
And I'll go over some of the best practices. So in starting a program like this, the book that I wrote covers this in great detail, but these are some things that I'm always kind of, when I'm talking to people all across the nation, and I do get at least a call every week, and if not several, emails, I want to get something started like, what you're doing out there in Los Angeles, and the number one thing I'll always say, you need to understand who is your audience. It's great to be all jazzed up and want to get started, but for many of the people, and Amanda and I were really fortunate because we actually live in the communities that we're serving, so we really don't have to go far. We always joke. I say, Amanda, all you have to do is open your door and you can get to work. Amanda lives in Watts, and I live in Southgate. So we're right in the heart of it. But for many that want to serve, they're not living in the community, and yet they want to help. They want to help the shelter, but they've got to understand who is the audience. Every shelter, of course, is going to be a little bit different. Provide services that are easy to access. So that sounds like a pretty obvious one, but I'm always amazed. The vet is 20 miles away, and the person, we all know that pets are not allowed. In our case, City of LA, you can't take a pet on the bus. So it doesn't really do any good to give somebody a free spay and neuter voucher if the partner vet that you've selected as the group providing the services is 20 miles away because you're getting the good deal. You might have to, like in our case, pay a little bit more to use that vet that's a little bit closer to get more people to use the services. Offer solutions that address the problem at hand. Another one that seems pretty easy, but sometimes, no, I'm not going to say sometimes, I'm going to say all the times I've been wrong. I'll get about maybe 75% of the problem right, but there's that little twist at the end, that you really have to stop and listen. Let's listen to what people are struggling with and not assume that if we just make it free, everybody's going to come, because let me tell you, they won't. And then we're going to assume that because you've offered this free, that nobody's used it because they don't want to spay and neuter their pets or whatever. And it's really understanding what are the solutions to address the true problem the community's facing. Build long-term alliances. The big thing I say here, running my furniture factory and running this program, and just in life, we're a marathon. This is not a sprint. So we may have to not do everything that we want to do all in one day, and we may have to just say to that person that we're not so fond of, let's agree to disagree, and let's stay in our lanes. Let's just stop, and let's not get in a fight, because too often in animal welfare, I feel we're under a lot of stress, and we should be supporting each other more and really listening and trying to, and it's not easy, but really bring each other up so that we do keep those alliances, and definitely the alliances with our shelters. I mean, they're our greatest resources, and come through for the pet owner. So that really means that if you promise something, as I learned the hard way, if you promise to have a bag of pet food for every pet that's spayed or neutered at that clinic, be prepared to go across to the Walgreens pharmacy and buy out all the dog food they have on the shelves because you didn't bring enough, because you had such a great turnout at your spay and neuter clinic. But really, seriously, if you're working with very low income pet owners, you've got to remember that it's not just about pets. So often, our people that are coming to our programs have been disappointed in lives. They've been told this program's going to give them a new job, and this program's going to give them new housing, and there's programs going on, and then they find out there's been budget cuts and this and that. There's a lot of disappointment. I can remember the first time I had a lady tell me that, and I thought, what's she talking about? I'm going to do what I'm saying. But I realized she's talking about 20, 30 years of disappointment, and I'm just coming in at the tail end of this. So just be very careful for what you promise to do for the pet owners. And in looking at all of our numbers, and there's a lot of numbers out there, we found that about 30% of the animals entering the shelters, they are owner surrenders. And of course, it's going to be higher in areas like ours, which is a very dense urban area. In one zip code, we might have 50,000 or more pet owners in one area, and a lot of them aren't licensed. And of course, our city, we don't license cats, so we really don't even know how many cats there are. Dogs, there's a very low rate of licensing. So our answer, of course, is more funding needs to be invested in keeping pets in homes and keeping families together. And I think that's the key here, is let's keep more families together. Amanda and I see so many people that come through our program that are adult foster children. They are children where they might not have known their father, or they don't know their mother, or grandma's raising them. They have a family that's been pieced together, and a lot of times what you don't know is the person that's just kind of coming into this at the tail end when they say they're moving, is that little cat or dog has given them so much enjoyment, and it's something that the whole family maybe takes pride in, getting the kitty or dog brushing and learning how to put fresh water out every day and feeding. And it's just, it's something that is there every day, unlike some of the situations the families that we encounter are seeing. So we have to remind each other about keeping the whole family together. So I'm going to close out here in the presentation. So we have a book that we offer that's available on Amazon. It's about $19.95. And the royalties from that book go straight into supporting our programs. Of course, no one's paid from this book, and if you're interested, I think, I'm the person that wrote it, and of course, I think the book gives you a lot of very useful information, and of course, it's kind of a quick read. So that's where we're going to end the presentation tonight, and I think we're going to start taking some questions.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the reminder to stop and listen and to not assume and to not judge. That was such a beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
So this is Mandy, everybody, and we're going to go through some questions here. We've got them stacked up. So first question that we have, how did you get your Animal Foundation grant? Because it sounds like without that, it wouldn't work. A lot of money is being invested. How did you take that first step to get the grant?
I didn't. That's the short answer. It's again, there's a slide in it that says build the alliances, and that's what I did. I think it's really important that we have to do the work, and it may not be at the level, and that's what we were doing for so many years. We were doing bits and pieces, and it was Amy Gelbreis, who's the director of Found Animals. She came to my office here. I said, I can't meet with you unless you come to the furniture, my furniture business. And she sat down and just made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, that actually in my mind as she was presenting it to me, I'll give you $100,000, Lori. And I was thinking, what am I walking into? Because this $100,000 program might end up costing me $500,000. How are we going to do this? But Amanda and I knew each other, so I was keen on already, hiring Amanda, so it's worked out beautifully. And they are a huge asset, and the answer is correct. We could not run the program as we run it, but I'm telling you, we would find a way to run pieces of it, maybe part-time. There are 2 other programs that have branched off. We call them our sister programs, and they started without any major grant. I helped start a little pieces of both of them. I'm certainly not going to take the credit away from them. They run very great programs. But they started with just a little seed money of about $1,000, and they built it up, and now Found Animals gives them some money, not to the degree that they give us, but they're just doing it 1 day a week, and the one is built from 1 day to 3 day to 5 days. So it's been a gradual increase.
Wow. So can you tell us, how do pet owners move from the shelter intake desk to your services?
Do you want to answer that, Amanda, how they come in and just how it works?
So usually the way it works is they go into the receiving area to surrender their pet, and one of the ACTs there will let them know that we have an intervention program here that may be able to assist them and help them keep their pet. At that time, they would forward them. I'm right next door. I'm located in the ASPCA building, literally two doors down. So they would send them to my office, and that's where I would offer assistance and try to come up with a solution so that we can keep the pet in their home.
Amanda, can you tell me, how many people do you think take them up on that offer of folks that are approaching the desk? How many are willing to come down to your office?
I would say 86%.
That's what our data supports of the cases, and we're really careful because they're not, at first we kind of had a learning curve, I have to say. They were kind of sending us to everybody, so we're getting a lot of angry people, but they really have fine-tuned it. It's taken 3 years. They're really asking the right questions on the intake, and finding out, is this even something that Amanda can deal with? Let's not set Amanda up to fail. So it's a very high number because they're not offering this to just everybody. Because a lot of people are there and they're saying, yeah, I'm moving this hour. Well, there's not a whole lot we can do with a big dog in an hour. It's just not realistic. Yeah.
What a labor of love. Amanda, I can only imagine your day. If we wanted a program like this in our shelter, how could we find people like you in our community to start one?
I would say in our case, I had relationships with clerical because I was always there and I'd be at the desk paying for something or this or that, and I think anybody that's worked at the shelter long enough knows there's a rescue group and it may not even be an animal group. It just might be somebody that has a nonprofit organization that's doing something maybe for youth or somebody that you can tie this program into. It does not have to be an animal program. In fact, our other counselor has no animal special education or anything. She's a social worker. This is really more, and we didn't include this in our presentation, Amanda's background is in, more social work, and my background is in child development and teaching. So we're approaching it, I would say, to look for somebody or of maybe a shelter volunteer, but you have to have also some professional management and background. I have 100 employees here at my factory, so it's not just like overnight, I'm like running a program and knowing how to do a budget. I mean, these are things that come naturally to me.
Thank you for that. Okay, we've got a couple more questions. If anyone has questions they want to add to the queue, we have about 10 minutes left, so make sure you get your questions in. How do you help people get veterinary care for their pets? That's the biggest problem we encounter, and we can't afford to provide it for everyone who comes who's in need.
I think we can answer that together. I'll start, because what we do is the person comes in and we have already established, we have our veterinary partners, so we have just common things like abscess and suturing and ear infection, and we've agreed, and we've sat down, and Amanda visits all the vets, and we agree not to give them too many cases, and there's a price, so she knows about how much everything's going to cost, so we have that kind of set aside and agreed upon prices, so that's very important before you even start the program. Visit your local vets. A lot of them are very into this, and this is a way, again, it's not free, it's very naive to think that vets are going to be able to just give you a lot of free care. I mean, this is a business, and we're running a business, and they're running a business. So person comes in and say they have an abscess. We know about what it's going to cost. It's going to cost, what, Amanda, about $100 or so?
Anywhere from $100 to $500.
Yeah, so there's going to be a range. So she's going to call the vet, and she's going to get an estimate, and we have a formal voucher. But the first question she's going to ask the family is, what can you pay? And a lot of times they say nothing, and she'll say, really? I mean, if we weren't here, the question is, if we weren't here, what was the plan? Can you ask, a neighbor, can you ask, can you borrow money? Can you do a little fundraiser? I mean, I even had one family that came over to, our kennel, and I had a bunch of what I call a little whatnot kind of junk, that little donations and things giveaway. And I said, look, you guys, we're doing orthopedic surgery. You all are going to go out to this swap meet, and they sold it, and they raised about $500, and we were able to match, we fundraised to $1,000. But you have to get real creative. What other points, Amanda, with how to screen the people? Like, how do you know to turn people away? Because sometimes people do take advantage. Like, how do you know good at this?
You can never be too sure, but you just want to make sure you're not being taken advantage of. I always, like Lori said, you have to become creative, and I'll tell them, go ask a family member, go ask a friend, go ask your boss. And, at the beginning, they're like, I have no money, and at the end, when I'm explaining to them how, this is very crucial, that you have to come up with something, we're not going to be able to pay for it all. At the end, they come up with, long and behold, $200. They were able to borrow it. We'll send them to the vet, and they have 2-3 hours to come up with the money. And some of the time they come up with some of the money, and some of the time they'll call me and they're being honest. I could not come up with the money, and we'll figure it out. We never turn anyone away. Right. But
we're going to push.
We're going to push them. We're not going to
make it.
You're
going to be doing the car wash.
We're not going to make it easy for them. Because they have responsibility, and this is the perfect opportunity.
And I was going to say too, it's like we're also dealing with, and I don't want to say all, but there's a big percentage of people that the answer is no, I can't do it, because they have not experienced success. So Amanda is more than just a pet intervention person. She's also sometimes a financial coach. It's, there's care credit. There's all kinds of things, and she'll help them. She'll help them get the forms, and sometimes we're surprised because all they really need to do is use our discount. Because they visited a vet that really was like a full retail vet, and they thought they owed $700, and we have a vet that, they'll get the price down to at least $300 or something like that, for the procedure.
You're really doing quite a bit of the legwork and negotiating on everyone's behalf. Are you asking them from the beginning to pay a percentage, or are you just saying, where can you meet us?
We start out with what can you afford, and we'll negotiate. I kind of, it's a little willing dealing.
Absolutely.
But there's some people, like Amanda, and the other thing too is, remember, I'm at a full-time job. This is, like I say, I have a job. I have a job over here, and she'll send me text messages sometimes all day long. So we run this little program off of T-Mobile text, and it works. It just works because she can't say it. Like, this person's really hot, Lori, and I have to honor it too. And I think you have to. This is really important. I'm the manager of the program, but I've really got to remember she's standing there in front of that person, and that person may not deserve 80% reimbursement or whatever, we're going to cover it, but that person's hot, and they're going to come back, and they're going to cause trouble. That is a very small percentage, but she's been in some very awkward situations where we have to help, or she'll text me and say, Lori, this person's homeless. This person doesn't even have any shoes on. They're not going to be able to pay $5. We got to pay the whole thing, or the dogs, cats, whatever, rabbit. We've even done some rabbits, a goat once, some chickens. We've done it all. So really, it's a trust between the manager and the counselor. I trust her 100%, her judgment.
Wow, you could just hear it. You guys have created quite a bond over the years.
Yes,
so
we have.
You said earlier you've kept 5,000 animals out of the shelter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wow. What percentage of intake? Do you know that number? What percentage of intake are you diverting from the shelter? And I know it's a high intake shelter from what you shared in the beginning, but do you know what you're able to divert?
I do not, and that question gets asked a lot, and that was a stumbling block we had when I first started with Found Animals, because I know that is very important, but for the long term, that's not as important to what are we doing to the mindset and the education. We're always talking about humane education, everything. Well, this is humane education, real talk. So the person that has learned now that there's spay and neuter vouchers, sometimes they get so excited they're sharing the information with the wrong zip codes, and we get a lot of people that come from all different areas, but they're just excited. Or we pay pet deposits. So we had one lady go through a whole building and say, guess what? We can all keep our pets because there's a program that pays for the pet deposit. And we had, oh my goodness. So, but we laugh now, but we've 5 families. That's $1,000, but it's been a real learning experience on every level. But this one next to me, I'm telling you, she's unique, and not to say every shelter can't find an Amanda, but it's more than just diverting the pets. It's about changing the mindset of families. It's about teaching them. And we even had to really understand that sometimes that the cat or dog entering the shelter, after we've been through all these steps, this was something that was hard for me, and now I really get it and I appreciate it. We have so many animals at the South LA shelter who, if we really were hard and cold, we'd go through those cages and say that dog is not adoptable, that cat's almost feral. Well, what we're doing is, if the ultimate result is the animal is going to get surrendered anyways, we have spayed and neutered, so that animal can go home. If it gets adopted, same day. We have vaccinated, so now there's a less of a chance that cat is going to get a URI or something worse, and the dog is not going to get parvo. We even have distemper sometimes at our shelter. If it is a dog, it could have had some basic obedience. So now we're making the pets in our shelter, because we don't have a problem in getting pets into homes. Our biggest problem is we don't always have the pets that people are coming to adopt. I hear that so often. So if we could get more people on track to spay and neuter, to vaccinate, and that's kind of another thing that we're doing. Amanda and I have a project where we do a vaccination clinic for dogs and cats, and we work with the Southern California Veterinarian Medical Association. So we do have the volunteer vets once a month in a community that's very dense and very poor, and they come out in the hundreds to get their cats, dogs vaccinated. We even give out books to the children, so we're promoting reading, because if you can stay in school and graduate, chances are you're going to make more money and you're not going to need our program later in life. So it's a really holistic program.
Wow. How many volunteers? It sounds like it's you and Amanda just saving the world. How many people are helping you?
I know. We're just saving the world over here. We have so many volunteers. We have some wonderful LA Animal Service volunteers. We tap into that resource. If you're walking by our office and you say hi, you might be taking home a kitten. you might be bottle feeding. We'll give you a crash course. Everybody, our motto is anybody and everybody can be a volunteer. We do have junior volunteers. Amanda's got a reading program that she works with the children. You know, there's something for everybody to do. You can go and you can grab some of the ASPCA information about spay and neuter and pass them out to all your neighbors. That's great too. So we have a lot of volunteers come and go. We'll accept volunteers on the spot. It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, to really volunteer, you know, handling dogs and things at our kennel, we have a formal kind of orientation. But what other volunteer things? Collecting dog food, cat food. We have that drive.
And outreach, going door to door.
Door to door.
Putting door hangers for free spay and neuter for our vaccine clinics.
So basically, if I look your direction, I'm volunteering with you.
Yeah, and we always say if you don't, we have a lot of people. I always say we have a lot of people that cry and they say we can't do what you're going to do, and I always say, well, you can always donate. We do have some really nice people that will donate, and our average donor is about $50. So we're not a wealthy organization. We always laugh. We've never had a gala. Not to say that galas are not good, because they are, but we just never have done that. We're not party people, and we're sometimes begging people for money. Right. But yeah, we're working every day, every hour, because you know what? I get up in the morning and you can tell I'm really into this, and Amanda is too. We're in it to win it, and we're in it for the long haul, and we encourage each other, and we have some wonderful I have some beautiful volunteers that have been with me for 15, 16 years, you know, long time. Wow.
You guys are removing barriers to everything, volunteerism, all of it, just getting it done. Wow.
Absolutely. You can grab a broom at one of our clinics. One man said, I want to volunteer with you sometime. And I said, you can volunteer right now, sir. Here's a broom. We've got trash all over the park. We got to clean it up before we get these vets in here. So, hey, you can volunteer right now.
You're hired. All right, well, we don't have much time left, but we do have a couple more questions that I just wanted to get in here real fast. Okay. What would you say are the practical steps? I know we've kind of talked about just getting it done, but did you start first with the plan and then the fundraising came? I know you're recruiting volunteers on the fly, but if somebody wanted to start right now, would you first say, if you could do it over, try and find the funds, or would you just start working it and the funds will come later?
That's it. I would say, and this has always served me just in life and then the organization incredibly well, is find something that you can personally afford and that you're willing to invest in, because if you're not willing to invest in it, how can you get others to invest? And it can be very, very small. And as you collect data, and that's very important, to collect and track data. We collect data on everything, and we're getting better and better at that. And take that number and get something simple going and start reaching out to some of the small grants. And I write, for the most part, this year, after 20 years, I have somebody helping me write the grants. I'm not a good grant writer, but I'm honest. And do, like we're saying in one of the slides, do what you say you're going to do and follow up and finish it. And not all money is good money. Sometimes people offer you money to do things that are way out of your comfort zone, and I'll turn people away. And I think that's a really good model to follow. Yeah, we love what we do. So we're doing things that if we were on the other side, we'd want somebody to help us.
Absolutely. That's great advice. If there's no other questions, I think this is a really good one to end on. You listed how people can help, quite a few things community members can do. But what can we do in our shelter right now if we want to start implementing some of these changes? What can we do in our shelter?
Well, I think some of the I know shelters do have a lot of rules, and I think some of those rules have to be revisited. And if you do have, I'm not saying just take a bunch of new volunteers, but if you have really trusted volunteers and you know they're professional people out in the world, trust them a little bit more and have good communication and be involved and know that you're not going to always agree. I know we've had our own little squabbles with shelter staff, and we have continued the program because at the end of the day, the goal is to continue the program. Lots of people have good ideas, but start small. So you might just want to start, if you have excess food at the shelter and you're just going to throw it away, maybe start a very small food bank. It's only one day a month. Don't set these big, giant goals and get a lot of things that people aren't comfortable with, and be honest. We always sat down with staff and listened, and those are my questions. What really makes you guys uncomfortable for us to do? And usually it involves handling animals or getting involved in their paperwork or jumping into a conversation they're having with the public. So we know our boundaries, and then they understand what ours is, and more trust.
That is an excellent answer. Just rethinking policies and figuring out how we can remove barriers. Not everybody's going to fit into the same protocol. What can we do to find solutions? Absolutely. And Karen shares that she agrees with you completely. They offer food, too. Instead of taking in an animal, it's better to offer the resources and keep families together.
Absolutely.
So just two quick reminders before we close. First, I just really wanted to thank Lori and Amanda again for your time. What you are doing is absolutely remarkable. I know there's not a person in this room tonight that's not inspired by your dedication and your willingness to just roll up your sleeves and get it done and not take no for an answer. You've certainly inspired me and really reminded me to think twice before I assume. And so I just really appreciate the message that you've shared with the challengers tonight. Thank you for your time. So one quick reminder to Million Cat Challengers out there, it is data time, and we need your data. So we are doing a nice little giveaway. Tomahawk is kindly donated sets of traps, 2 traps, 20 sets of them, so 40 traps in total. Get your data in by February 15th, and we'll be doing a drawing to give away some nice Tomahawk traps. Don't miss out on that. And one more quick reminder for our next webinar, save the date. It's coming up right around the corner, February 23rd at noon Pacific. Save the date, Miami-Dade. We'll be talking about their Milkman and Wait Till 8 program to also help keep pets out of the shelter during January and February, alternatives to intake. So February 23rd, we have more great information on alternatives to intake. If you missed anything tonight, if you have any questions, you can always reach us at info@MillionCatChallenge. And we will, of course, post the link to this webinar tomorrow in the Million Cat Challenge Yahoo group. If you are not in the Million Cat Yahoo group, you are missing out. Great conversations, lots of resources, and lots of links to webinars and things are being posted there. So make sure you're in the Yahoo group and email us at info@ if you'd like to be added and you're not already there. So without any more questions, thank you, everybody. Have a great night tonight, and thank you for spending your time and joining us on this challenge. Thank you, Maddie's, for hosting, and again to Lori and Amanda for your time tonight.